What is the meaning behind Sukuna's black box in Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2? Here's a spoiler-free explanation. Now, this video is mainly for people who are anime onlys, who don't read or speak Japanese, or anyone who needs a quick refresher. And because of that, I will be leaving out updated information for people who aren't caught up with the manga. That way you can still have fun and make your own theories as well. I will, however, be going over one of Gege's earlier works, number 9, so that will be spoiled. And also a very big thank you and shout out to Saffron Apple Pie, or Fatima. They're a translator on Twitter who helped me to look some things up, figure things out, and double checked anything Japanese language related. So for starters, it's not Sukuna's black box, that was just some clickbait for the title, but I based it on a common misconception because that's what some people think it is. It's simply a placeholder, censorship. It's meant to cover up a kanji, much like how we censor government documents. Technically, that could be any kanji since all kanji take up a square of space. But that's not really intuitive for someone who doesn't speak Chinese or Japanese, which added to the confusion when they kept that same box in the English translation. When looking at the untranslated version, it's a lot more clear that that box wasn't just some random box, but there to signify that you're not supposed to know what's being said. And if you forgot, this was not the first time that Gege ever did something like this. Gege used the mission back in JJK 0 when he covered up what Geto said to Gojo. Except in that case it was a missing statement, replaced by 2 lines, and then those lines were rotated in the translated version to match how things are in English, which makes it a bit more obvious. So when we see Sukuna mouthing something in the anime in Season 2, he's not mouthing Fuga, he's mouthing something else. Speaking of Fuga, that's 2 U's, not 1 U, in case you're wanting to Google it. That's not the actual pronunciation for the kanji that's written. The kanji is usually not written by itself, but the common word associated with it is hiraku, as in to start, to open, to unseal. Typically the furigana or the characters that you see to the side are used to show how to pronounce the kanji, but sometimes they're used to give an alternate pronunciation which is used for double entendres and other fun things. And in this case it's written in katakana, which shows that the pronunciation is different than the expected pronunciation. Here's an analogy to make things a bit more easier to comprehend if you don't have any experience with Japanese. Imagine that I wrote a sentence, and in the sentence, instead of writing the word star, I used the symbol for star. So let's say I wrote the sentence, I saw a bright star, and I wrote it as, I saw a bright star. And then in parentheses, instead of spelling out S-T-A-R star, maybe I'd spell O-R-I-O-N, Orion. Conceptually, Orion is related to the word star, but it's still a different word altogether. It has a different pronunciation, it has a different meaning. So then you might wonder, do you mean Orion the constellation, or do you mean Orion the hunter from Greek mythology? Or maybe it's something else altogether? That's the thing, we don't know. It's not very clear. So going back to Sukuna, with Fuga, it's not quite clear what it means, and it's up to the readers to figure it out. Does it mean fugue, the musical compositional style which uses multiple voices with a common repeated theme to create harmony? Or is it relating to Deimos and Phobos, the gods of fear? From what I can find, those 2 gods are twins, and it's kind of hard to differentiate the 2. But I think Deimos represents dread or terror, or the anticipation that you feel before a battle, and Phobos represents panic and flight, the feelings that you get during a battle. And what's the Latin name for Phobos? Fuga, F-U-G-A, meaning flight or fleeing. And to make it even more complicated, fuga is the same Latin root used for the phrase dissociative fugue. A state where someone has memory loss or loss of identity, while also experiencing flight, ending up in an unexpected area. So while it's all somehow tied together, we do know that Gege loves numbers, patterns, religion, and deities. So maybe that could steer us in the right direction. And the last layer to this onion is that this could be a triple entendre. We have the kanji for open, written as fuga, but this pronunciation could also represent the Japanese word fuga, which could be elegance, or grace, or refinement. But until we know what that hidden kanji is, it's still difficult to figure out how this all ties together and what everything truly means. And now with all that out the way, let's debunk a couple of common theories. The first one is that the black box is a tattoo that Sukuna has, and now we know that it's just a placeholder for a word, it's not a representation of something on Sukuna's body. Boom! Debunked! The second similar theory is that it's related to Gege's one-shot number 9, where the main character, number 9, is able to summon shapes or boxes and use those to fight. Each box or shape has a different property, so the theory was that the black box was one of many attacks that Sukuna could summon. And in the one-shot, we can see that number 9's 9th box is multiple boxes being summoned. Then he goes on to say a couple of things, one of them being Jack Out, and the next one being Fuga. And coincidentally, the first thing that he grabs is a bow with 3 arrows, similar to Sukuna manifesting a fire arrow. But then he quickly goes on to use other weapons as well. The scanlation shows the translation of Fuga being fugue, but I don't truly know what that means. My brain's a bit tired from making this vlog. Maybe it means like a medley of things being used, a bunch of weapons being used in harmony. I don't really know. Regardless, I still think that the black box in JJK is just meant to hide some information from us. But again, Gege loves patterns, so I don't think it's unreasonable to believe that this was a reference to his older work or a development of an older concept. For example, in the one-shot number 9, a character named Megami has her dog killed by a mysterious creature. Megami having a dog killed by an evil creature sounds very much like Jujutsu Kaisen. So it's clearly a very similar similar detail and a recurring theme, but not necessarily a groundbreaking detail. So now that you know everything you've ever wanted to know about Fuga and the black box, remember, sometimes things get lost in translation. Puns, cultural subtext, nuance, pronouns. And while we can often eventually get answers, sometimes the deepest understanding takes a little bit of research and prying out the original language.